Nau mai, haere mai. Morena tātou. Welcome everybody. We'll start with the Karakia, please. Tutawa mai I runga, tutawa mai I raro, tutawa mai I roto, tutawa mai I waho. Kia tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ora ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, pai ki e. Na miki nui, thank you. So before we start, we'd like to do an introduction to our brand new group manager communities, Jeanette Wikaira. And Jeanette, over there in the corner, give us all a wave. So thank you. Very, very thrilled to have you here. We were at a pulphery yesterday up at Matai Whetu Marae, Ngāti Maru, to welcome Jeanette joining us and to have a formal handover from her whānau to us. And it was a lovely ceremony. Aileen, did you want to say something else? Oh, thank you. All right, so Jeanette, welcome, and we'll crack into our business for the day. So, do we have any apologies?
No, but we do have Councillor Gottlieb online.
Councillor Gottlieb online. Good morning, Councillor Gottlieb.
Greetings to you all. It's probably just as well I didn't come. I've got a terrible heat cold.
Okay, well, I hope you've got some pills and potions to get that under control.
Thank you.
Maybe take it easy on the whiskey to begin with. This early in the morning.
I'll cut that off.
Are there any late urgent items? There being none, any conflicts of interest to declare? Being none, we'll go straight to the rating review verbal feedback. And the first speaker is Rob Hart, and Rob's online. Rob, can you hear us okay?
Good morning. Yes, I can. Thank you.
Fabulous. All right, Rob. So you're going to have 5 minutes to speak to your submission. At 4 minutes, you'll hear that. Is that coming through to you?
No, but that's fine. Look, it will be less.
So
it will be just under 5 minutes.
We'll hold up a sign. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Right, I can. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, fabulous. All right. Your time starts now.
Okay. Well, look, thank you, Mr. Mayor and elected members, for the opportunity to speak to you today. It's just a short submission, and it relates essentially to my personal situation. I live in Whitianga with my wife, and so I'm just speaking from our own perspective, to be honest. So with no further ado, and this is the written submission that you will also have, or council staff will have. So our preferred option would be a flat per property rate reflecting a fair user pay system. And obviously this isn't an option which is up for consideration, but we do think that a flat per property rate reflecting a fair user pays a system would be the way to go. This way everyone would pay an equal and fair share for access to and use of public services. This would be the most equitable and easy to administer system. It is a system utilised by some other councils, notably Waikato Regional Council and others, details of which I could sort of possibly help with staff to pass on or whatever, but like the details are there. Notwithstanding the above comment, our preferred option of those you have provided would be the status quo. And we also make the following further comments. So capital value is not a fair means to assess rates given improvements on properties, including additional dwellings, as they may not represent the ability of people to pay an increased share of rate burden. So fixed income beneficiaries, for example, with high capital value properties may have inherited that property or have owned it for decades before coastal property values increased substantively, which they obviously have over the last 20 years. Or middle income people who already pay a disproportionate amount of tax, I would contend. Secondly, land value provides an even playing field without discriminating against those who either find themselves in a situation of high capital value or have worked hard and made sacrifices to achieve their home, which incidentally requires more upfront capital and ongoing maintenance, which generates more work and cash flow in the local economy. And I can speak to that directly because we ourselves have had a lot of maintenance on our property in the last couple of years and kept quite a few traders going here. Thirdly, we do not understand or support Council's statement that rating on capital value will correlate to a closer relationship with household ability to pay. For example, our rates will increase substantively when we are a couple already working full-time and with no foreseeable corresponding increase in income to match that rate increase. Also, our jobs and income are vulnerable to ongoing economic downturns and also legislative changes. In fact, since making this submission, coincidentally, my wife's sort of job position has been disestablished. So it's a sign of the times, and also like sort of reflects like ability to pay for people like us. Fourthly, we do not have another dwelling and are not a commercial premises with additional burden on council services. We will be getting no additional benefit for the increase in rates. So our question for council and staff, like sort of on that point, would be what additional services do you believe we will get as a result of a higher rates contribution? Now that's something obviously for you guys to consider, and it's a rhetorical question for now. Second point and my final point is we make the following comments on the disadvantages you state for option 1. Firstly, that the district being unable to benefit from the work undertaken to date is not the valid reason to progress with a change. If a sizable number of ratepayers opt for the status quo, then council appears to have misread the community. Secondly, further, you note that additional resource and staff time is required to make changes from the status quo. And the final point I have is that we have lived and worked in this district for 20 years and have not heard any strong or repetitive calls for a change in the rating system. And if there has been, we suggest that this has not been communicated that widely and that the community hasn't been warmed to that particular view. And with that, that concludes my submission, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob. I'll open it to councillors if they have any questions of you on the points that you've raised. Councillors, anything you want to ask Rob? All right. Thanks, Rob. Much appreciated.
Great. Okay. No, thank you, Len, and thank you, elected members.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Next speaker is Andrew Hill. Is Andrew here or online? I'm not seeing him here. No, it must be online. Oh, there he is.
Yes, I'm online. Good
morning.
morning. Yeah, my name's Andrew Hill. Can you hear me okay?
We can, loud and clear. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. So I'm just wanted to thank you for this opportunity to speak to the rating review. I'm speaking on behalf of the Hill Family Trusts. The trusts are involved in 9 rural properties in the Thames-Coromandel area. Taken together, option 3 will mean a 25% increase in rates. If I look at one specific property, which is at Karakia, where we are developing a new kiwi fruit orchard, and I take the figures, land value 1,050,000, capital value 2,300,000. Status quo would give us rates of 2,510. Option 3, 3,519. That's in fact a 40% increase. We are currently in year 10 of the development into a new variety of kiwi fruit. We have not yet reached break even. So the basis for improvement value of 1,250,000 to me is highly questionable, and land value is a far more stable concept. So what are the improvements? Well, they're vines, support structures, irrigation systems. And as a primary producer, we're committed to significant spending each year to give these improvements any real value. By that I mean the ability to produce. This situation really is totally different to the urban situation. Improvements are represented more by bricks and mortar, supported by an established housing market, and are far less contestable. I believe to move to a rating system based on capital value is profoundly unfair to the rural primary producers. And as such, the Hill Family Trust supports retaining status quo, option 1. It appears to me that the significant negative impact on rural properties is being sidelined.
Thank you.
Experience has shown that a balance between rural and urban and tourist interests is crucial to a robust local economy. Penalising the rural community will discourage investment, which in the long term will adversely impact on healthy future growth and employment opportunities in the area. The document presenting the options is ostensibly biased towards option 3. More time is needed for discussion and consultation. This is a very important issue, and new council and mayor should be absolutely involved in the decision making. I also note that the fair share calculator is no longer online. Is the council in such a hurry to close off this discussion? Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that. Councillors, any questions of Andrew? No, nothing at this stage. Well presented. Thanks, Andrew. You make some very, very good points. Thank you. And if there's no questions from councillors, we'll move on. Appreciate it. Linda. Just the right-hand button on that microphone, please. Yeah. You'll see a red light come on.
Yeah.
Down the bottom.
Red light's on.
That's the one. That's all.
It's not a button, that's a bit of flat metal. Okay.
All yours.
You can start now. As you saw with, I should introduce myself, Gary, Linda Dacey, Whangamata. With my submission, it was very brief and to the point. And having heard the last submitter, I make the point that I speak from an urban perspective, although I do appreciate that rating is a district issue. I do support CV over land value with targeted local rates, but it has taken a very long time to get this far. This submission document is entitled Rating Review, and I would suggest that the review of rating has only just started. So I was very surprised to discover that even what you have managed to get to, i.e. CV versus LV, has taken a whole year. What happened to the much vaunted rates review working group, which was going to include community members from across the district? A concept that was first introduced to me personally in this very room over a year ago. I've kept asking when this review would take place and get underway. Always the same reply. I'll get back to you on that one. And silence until the next encounter. I keep track of how many times I speak to each one of you, and some of you are up in double digits already in 12 months. In making only the LV to CV change, you're failing to truly reform the rating system. The UGAC and the general rates components need to be increased, and targeted local rates need to be developed accurately. A lot of our rates currently go to district growth enabling Thames and surrounds as a priority. This is constant Thames-centric view, and it has been funded by those of us over the hills for far too long. Paying for Thames inhibits our own growth, and this rating inequity has become a loud demand for full rating reform. if you add in the unproven assumption that particularly with residential rates, valuation equates to equality to pay, the inequity gap is widened. Many rates-related policies need review. The rates remediation policy needs to be more flexible, for example. But the biggest issue is how slowly you are moving to effect change. The affordability of rates and the annual increases are serious problems. The percentage increase you advertise, you know full well is meaningless to ratepayers because everybody gets their own demand and calculates their own percent. And if some of them are 30% above, we know quite a lot must be well below. It's not good enough. No doubt, amongst those who've been subsidised for decades, there's a belief that they're entitled to be. Well, they're not. Users should pay, and you really are supposed to draw up your policies in a way that benefits the whole district and honour your commitment to a full rates review.
Thanks, Linda. That's your submission.
That is my submission,
Thank
backed
you.
up by my very well summarised online.
Thank you. Thank you. No, I appreciate the thought and the passion that's gone into that. You and I have had a few discussions. I know it's something that
We're in double
resonates.
digits, Len.
Yes, I know.
And someone else putting their head and trying to duck behind the screen over there who's had just as many. Notice Mr. Gottlieb's disappeared from the screen. But really, this needs attention. And to wait a whole year for one perhaps to come into effect when you know full well that what's going to happen when you strike the rates for the coming year is basically intellectual dishonesty.
Thanks, Linda. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Sinclair, please.
Hello, Linda. I was intrigued to read that Thames is receiving a lot of benefit from district rating because the people on the street of Thames don't believe that.
I know, they don't.
But no, let me finish. So we've got a lot of things here. Is there any justification at this point that we should stop funding district funded things on the other side of the peninsula, as you so eloquently put it, like your water treatment plants?
Well,
when we're waiting for a water treatment plant for some houses here.
Well, our water treatment plant, that would be up to Terry to describe in more detail. What the people in Whangamata are jumping up about in terms of waters is not water treatment coming from for our potable water, as you know. So the people who are talking to me are more agitated about other waters at the moment, and we'd like the money allocated for those to crack on and get spent.
May I ask a supplementary question, please?
Absolutely.
Could Whangamata afford, within only rates collected from the Southeast Ward, to do all the work that you're suggesting for the stormwater network?
We're not suggesting that all rates collected in a ward be spent in a ward. What we are suggesting is that what you put in district should be given a long, hard look, and that planning should be realistic and community driven, and that targeted rates must be put to the people and they're given the choice as to whether or not they pay them.
I may a third question.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I just see that the copy of the submission that we have has your name listed there, but you're talking about we. Are you representing yourself as a partner? Are you representing yourself in an organisation that hasn't been declared here? Just for the interest of transparency.
And I made that clear. I submitted, and I'm speaking today as Linda Dacey, unaligned.
Thank you.
I do not want to bring any organisation with whom I am associated into disrepute, but I do want to make my feelings heard because you asked me personally 12 months ago, would I be interested in participating in the rates review working group? And I said yes. And that is why I've been waiting for some real rates review with some real community input patiently. And I'm not here today grumpy. I'm just here today to say, and when I say we, it's because I live in a town and most of the people I talk to are not happy campers.
I really
Thanks.
appreciate your clarity on that, because I know that you do represent a number of other organisations when you come to speak to us. I think in the interest of transparency, it's just very clear to get that
Well,
on
in the
record.
interest of transparency, I was introduced as Linda. I could have been Linda from anywhere. I did say what my surname is, and I filled in the form with a no. I do not represent in this submission anybody else but myself.
Thanks, Linda. Any other questions from councillors? All right, thank you, Robin. Okay. Appreciate you coming all the way. And Ron Julian.
Good morning. I guess I know most of you here through different over the years. You're all familiar with our running situation since 2007, 18 years. Described in our submission. I don't need to repeat it here, and we're not going away easily. Full marks, Len, on delivering the rating review you promised 3 years ago when we talked and you became familiar with our situation, and of course the rest of you councillors, you've got to start somewhere. Be positive. Our submission is aligned, but a little outside the scope of this somewhat narrow review. So thank you for accepting my speaking here. The rating review proposal you'd have in front of you, I guess, page 1, the opening focus, first paragraph, aiming to make rates bills fairer. And the third paragraph, proportioned on services received. 2 real key words, and my submission is premised on those. A picture of dividing up the pie, it's a good graphic. The cut is way too greedy on us. I love pie, but not that much. Then page 3, why? The 3 major themes, affordable, fair and equitable. The platform's pretty clearly set, I believe. So I just want to move on and run through a few quick points in our submission. We support rethinking, and that's what we've done in our submission. We've rethought on how we might present it. And we submit that campsites and our campgrounds should not be treated as issue IPs separately from the campground, because they cannot constitute either a separate residence or a separate business or separate business use. We submit that all campgrounds in the district, irrespective of the number of owners, should be treated the same for rating purposes, specifically in terms of council's SUIP policy, I'll use your term, irrespective of ownership. Ours are interpreted as comprising multiple SUIPs, inconsistent with council's mandate of fairness, equity, affordability, and a subset of that, economic viability, which unduly penalises our campgrounds. Moving into the current rating system, imposing SUIPs on campsites is not appropriate or fair, because there has not been and cannot be any change or increase in the services provided by TCC to either property. Yet rates increases threaten the financial sustainability of our campgrounds. We included a table in our submission. The inequity is obvious. I don't need to dwell on that. You'd have to have rocks in your head if you think paying $85,000 a year for a campground rates is fair. Why review? The critical point for us is that our campgrounds have generated no more demand on council resources. Rates historically under 1% now exceed 25% for us, threatening economic viability and destroying our competitive equality. The decision to impose SUIPs was on the mistaken belief that occurred some years back on the belief of a backdoor or subversive subdivision scheme. There's a bit of history we described there that you can just read that. I don't need to go over that any further. The issue includes some SUIP discussion per se. And talk about the intent of the SUIP tool is to enable council to apply multiple targeted rates within a rateable unit or a property per additional use within such property which increase demand on council and community services. Increased demand, the primary defining criteria. The purpose is to ensure that each residence or business comprising part of a rateable property contributes to the cost of local council services it utilises. Our campsites can never qualify as residences, can never qualify as separate business premises. Yet, in our case, SUIPs were and are applied to some individual campsites, despite no change of use, no increase in services demanded of TCDC. So, how do we fix it? Our proposal. Page 5 of your rating review proposal talks about the definition of separate use and inhabited parts of a rating unit. Our proposal is to just add a paragraph to the front end of that, just describing what the intent and purpose of the SUIP tool is, and that's to enable council to apply multiple targeted rates within a rateable unit within such properties which increase demand on council and community services as a consequence of more intensive use within such rating unit, that each rate payer fairly and equitably contributes to the cost of the council community and community services. Changed use, potential or actual increased demand is the primary defining criteria. And the SUIP SUIP definition, or translation it's called in the document, it lists 7 bullet point examples. Generally were captured by the last one. Arguably, I'd like to add just a qualifying sentence on the end of that, in brackets, whatever you want, excluding campsites and camping grounds as defined in the Camping Grounds Regulations 1985. The whole idea of this, our proposed solution reinforces purpose and adds clarity to SUIP's translation, primarily to assist frontline staff and middle management and remove emotive interpretations, which arguably we were and are a victim of. There's only there's only an upside to this. There's no downside. This is clarifying it for everybody. Our camping grounds could not be further removed from fairness, and also little change and increase in services required or received.
That's the time, Ron. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillors, any questions of Ron? Martin, please.
Hey, Martin.
Good morning. Have you got any examples of how campgrounds, of what you would consider a fairer way of handling SUIPs and campgrounds in other parts of the country?
My knowledge is that the SUIP policy as it's applied by this council to my 2 campgrounds at least doesn't occur anywhere else in the country.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No further questions, councillors? Ron, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, that's the last of our in-person speakers and online speakers. So could I get a mover and a seconder, please? Robin, thank you. And Rekha. All those in favour? Thank you. Okay. We go to item 2.1, feedback and decisions on 2025-26 annual plan consultation. And we'll invite Catherine, Madeline and Hayden, please. And Anna Stevens. There she is. Thank you. We have Madeline, is she online?
Through the chair, Madeline's just sitting at the back. We thought, whilst we're on force this morning, we won't bombard you with forwards.
Thank you. She's there if you need. Okay. Can I suggest that we look at page 3, and we've got items 1 and 2, which receives the feedback and decisions on annual plan consultation and the feedback on been there, done that. I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder just to receive these, please. Reka and Deli, please. All those in favour? Thank you. And we'll open it up to the team. Who's leading this off? Kath? Thank you.
Ata Maria. So we're getting to the end of the latest annual planning process. The report outlines, in summary, the number of decisions you've made to date, and I won't go through and repeat those, except to say that you have already approved in principle draft rates increase of 7.7%, $113 million forecast level of debt and $60 million capital program for the 25-26 year. That, of course, was subject to consultation on our curbside collection proposal and any necessary budget adjustments that might come through between the time those decisions were made and the adoption of the annual report. So at this point, we're in a position where we are asking you to make the final decisions so that we can go forth and prepare the final annual report for adoption at the end of next month. To that effect, the purpose of this report is twofold. First, to present the feedback on the been there, done that proposal, and also make some decisions on any final outstanding budget matters. So we have in the paper a decision around curbside collection changes, a decision around the Thames-Coromandel magazine future, and a further item to update you on around the additional budget changes that staff were requested to find back in March. So what I suggest we do is move through these 3 items in the report, topic by topic, and then discuss those as we go, perhaps. And then after that, no doubt there may be other questions or comments that we need to turn our minds to. Does that sound okay? Okay. So on page 4, we've started presenting some information on the curbside collection pickup proposal. Really, the purpose of this exercise was to identify, to gauge the level of community support for the proposal, and also whether there were any new considerations that the council may wish to consider attached to that proposal. You'll see that we had approximately 255 people engaging with the campaign. Most people provided their feedback in the form of the feedback form. More people were in support of the proposal than opposed, although I do need to emphasise that we need to take care with numbers. You know, it's a relatively low response rate of 255, so we do need to take care with taking those numbers as an indication of a for or against. It's certainly not a poll or a vote. You'll note that the preferences for and against differed across serviced areas, and you'll see that Mercury Bay North had a higher response rate and probably a more even split of views. The summary in the report also notes some alternative suggestions which people had made, including changing the period of which the second pickups are carried out. Anna has considered all this and made some recommendations to you in the report. So perhaps, Anna, is there anything you'd like to say on this item?
Yeah.
Anna, just flick it. Thank you.
Sorry.
Maybe swing that around a bit closer to you so those online can see
it. Oh, cute. Right here. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to discuss this further. It was quite interesting as well through this process to meet with some community members through our in-person sessions in Whangamata, Whitianga and Tairua. So it was great to hear that feedback directly as well. There were some concerns from the communities regarding whether or not the reduction in services would suffice to the needs of the community, especially, you know, with the large increase of visitors.
the data that we had received from our collection contractor based on just the peak period just past supported that there was actually quite a low presentation. So part of the reason for this is that we feel like it's quite justified to be able to that once a week would actually support all of the communities, even with that huge influx of visitors. We did, as Kath said, we did get some feedback in different communities about their concerns about what if it didn't support it. We do have transfer stations as well in the area that 4 of them have a 24/7 drop off. So if you were, for example, leaving the area early, or if you had, in excess of volume over and above, your 140 litre rubbish bin or 2 45-litre glass crates, there is the option, of course, to take that to the transfer station as well at any time.
Terry, you got a question?
Yeah, I got a question. Yeah, thank you. I was a little interested, first of all, that there was quite a bit of feedback about reducing the time frame from, the full month down to, say, a week after New Year, from Christmas and New Year. And secondly, did the non-resident ratepayers, can you pick the numbers that how many of those were actually responding, or was it just numbers on people who submitted? Is there any data on that, whether non-resident ratepayers had an influence into what's going on here?
Through the chair, no, we really collected data based on where people use the service, rather than whether they were resident ratepayer or absentee ratepayer. We don't always ask for people's addresses, permanent addresses nowadays with the Privacy Act requirements. We didn't feel the need for that, so we don't have that data.
Okay, and the feedback on the shortened time period, did that come through with the discussions?
We did, receive some feedback, in particular when we were in Tairua at the in-person session. We did have some feedback there as to whether we would consider, I suppose, a reduction of the time period. That wasn't part of this consultation process, but it's not to say we couldn't look at that in future as well.
Yeah, the other one that popped up was the glass collection around that area. That was the concern, that people having glass around, in the streets. So that would be a concern that I heard, at any rate, quite clearly through the discussions. Yeah.
Thank you, Terry. John Grant, thank you.
Thank you. Just following up on Terry's question. In the data that you got from the rubbish collection through that period of time, was there anything specific about volumes of glass? Was it, I know overall the view was that it really wasn't justified having that extra collection, but was there any specifics around how much glass there was in comparison to general rubbish?
Are you referring to volume-wise, like the tons of glass?
Well, just, really the overall impression as to whether there was still quite high volumes of glass, or whether those were as low as the general rubbish during that period of time.
Yes, I think the glass presentation was the highest, obviously, over the New Year's period. So that New Year's week is always generally our highest week, and it does kind of peter off from there. So it also had low presentation over that time. And it's something as well with the glass. The crates themselves are 45 litres, and you're entitled to up to 2 per household. So that's 90 litres, essentially. So that with that being twice a week, theoretically, they're then, with the current system, is entitled to 180 litres a week. And so that's when you're getting closer to, your recycling bin being 200 litres. That's much closer to that size. So that's a lot of glass. So some properties that have, a number of visitors, they could, absolutely utilise that perhaps in that 1 week over New Year's, but it absolutely does peter off over that time. Yeah.
Rika, did you have a question?
And it just actually answered my question whether people were entitled to more than one crate. Thanks.
Quick question for you, Anna. Which transfer stations have 24/7 drop-off?
So the Whangamata transfer station, Matarangi, Tairua and Pawanui, and they're absolutely very well utilised over that time. So they have a glass drop-off, a recycling drop-off, as well as refuse, the refuse compactors as well.
Thank you. Robin and Rebecca, please.
Good morning. And reading through all the submissions, I wondered whether one of the problems that we're experiencing is not the level of service, but the knowledge about the level of service. So my first question was going to be which refuse transfer stations have that 24-hour drop-off. So my follow-up question, I guess, is what can we do to become, to push that messaging out, particularly before the peak season next time? And can we add that to some sort of comm strategy or reach out to the resident and ratepayer associations to help them spread the message? Because it feels to me like that's a missing piece of information for some people who may have then put in a submission.
Yes, absolutely. We can certainly add more information on that as part of our comms plan. So over peak period, we do try and do a lot of communication in relation to the rubbish and recycling services, like daily Facebook posts and things like that for the curbside collection. We also do mention some additional services in our calendar, in our curbside calendar. But I think that's a really good point, and we'll absolutely add to that. Especially if this was to go ahead, we'd have to do some very strong comms on it. Absolutely.
Rebecca, please.
Will the new waste transfer station in Whitianga have some 24-hour drop-off facility as well? So by the middle of next year, that will be up and running?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they'll have after-hours drop-off of both recycling and refuse as well.
Terry, thanks.
Yes, go back to the little issue around glass. It's one that keeps raising his head. Over the Christmas period, new period, when they pick up glass from the waste management, they just chuck the whole lot into, they don't sort it, they just chuck it into the bin. But if you've got to take your glass up to the transfer station, you've got to stand there and throw the glass, green, the amber and the clear amongst it. It would be great if they're going to do the same thing, just take it away in a bog, that they had a bin there they could just pour it all into, as opposed to sitting there with your crates and just having to throw the bottle in. Maybe something to consider.
Yeah, there's absolutely something we can look into with the at peak period due to the huge volumes of glass received. There is a short period over that time where glass is actually collected curbside as a mixed colour, and that is the best way that we can actually manage the volumes, because we're talking about the glass that we collect in January, is about 400 tonnes. So it's a huge amount. So to ensure, I suppose, efficient collections in the huge number of households, that is for a short period how we collect it. We don't do that the rest of the year. So it is something we can consider, and it will also come back down to the processing facility of whether they would accept that a rest of the year.
Yeah, well, they'll have a lot of people up at the transfer station with their bins, so it'll be quite a busy area. So if they can consider that, it'd be good.
Delhi.
I'd like to tautoko Councillor Sinclair and her words, but I think the bottom line here is a lot of people misunderstood the consultation, and it came through in the drop-in centres sessions as well, that everything would be collected once a week, that they weren't going to lose. They weren't going to go back to it's alternate weeks. I've got recycling this week, red bin, food bin the following week. So that was something that we had to constantly remind people, that they weren't losing a collection of everything, if you like. So that was the first point. The second point is absolutely around education, and I'm thinking of places. Mercury Bay North responded quite strongly, and they do have an RTS at Matarangi, for example, that occasionally there are weddings and there are big parties and things at a location like that. They have to be it would be ideal if they were educated around the fact of preparing yourself to take your excess glass, because most of us, I noticed Councillor Rodley's eyebrows went up at the volume. Most of us can cope with a bin or 2 bins, even with visitors, but need to be prepared to take some personal responsibility for the waste that we produce at our property. And it's not that big an effort to go and take your glass to the transfer station.
Thanks, Delly. Martin, please, and then Peter.
Yes, I'm going to stop Googling how many swimming pools it would take to fill up 400 tonnes of glass. So are you confident, and Councillor Sinclair asked before about a campaign, and I know you were saying that we already do something like that. Are you confident that Council has sufficient resources and a campaign to be able to address lots of those concerns that the 32% of people who thought they couldn't manage over that with the reduced period? Was that clear?
Yeah. I am confident. We work very closely with our comms team for peak period education and discussions in relation to curbside as well as transfer stations. So it would just we would start those conversations. To be honest, in the next few months, we start planning for peak period in July normally. So comms are a big part of that plan and a big part of that discussion. So if this change was to be implemented, then absolutely we'd make sure there's some pretty strong comms around it, and as well also including it, as I mentioned, on the curbside calendar. So that's tells everyone exactly what their day is for the collection per material. And we've also we also do a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, Facebook advertising, but as well as print advertising, radio advertising. So that's really helpful as well.
Thank you.
Peter.
Just a few comments from me. Firstly, I think it was pleasing to see the comments where they were commending the document and the fact the document was a clear document and what have you. So that was really good. But I'd add to that, at a time when we're doing all these consultations and we're going to evaluate the effectiveness, I think it's a shame that we didn't capture how many people actually came and talked about those things. And I think when we're wanting to enhance and improve the way we consult, I think gathering that sort of data is really important. I'm aware that this was a consultation about the extra collection, and I, for one, didn't know that I could have 2 crates, and I kind of wonder how many other people out there didn't know that, because it would seem to me that the wealth of or the weight of feedback was around glass in particular. And it would seem, oh gosh, if I can have double the amount of glass, then perhaps that would go away. And I think perhaps somehow we need to get that message out to people. The third comment I'd make was, whilst this was about that extra collection, I think that we have gathered a huge amount of data and information and opinion about waste collection generally. And I would like to think that this actually prompts us to have a really good look at how the way we go about handling waste collections around the district. It was interesting, I think somebody made a comment that perhaps we could reduce collections during the winter months, and what have you. And when you begin to think about things like that, you think, hey, there's a whole lot of information here that we should take on board and actually step back and have a strategic look at the way we could do the waste collection. And my final comment, no, not my final comment, second to final comment, there are the people who expressed, look, it's no trouble to go down to the refuse transfer station, you know. And there's others who say, hey, it's a big issue to go to the transfer station. I think, as Councillor Walker suggested, anything we can do to make it an easier process at the transfer station, i.e. let's just all chuck the bottles in rather than taking the grandkids down and sorting out brown from green from white and so on, would make a difference. But things to help people with get that attitude of, hey, it's okay to take stuff down at the refuse transfer station. And then the final comment would be, when I was a kid, which was last century, you know, we used to go on bottle drives. The rugby club, the Boy Scouts, you know, we'd go around because a bottle had value, you know, it was worth a penny or whatever it was. And that's how we raise funds. And you kind of think, I wonder if there's a bigger play here that government needs to be thinking about the whole thing about recycling glass and how if there was a value attached to it from the community's point of view, then actually a whole lot of this would go away because the rugby clubs would go running around to collect the bottles and stuff like that. So I don't know whether and what you're doing, Anna, where there is a national play around that sort of thing, but that would seem to me to be something if glass was seen as of value rather than as of something to be disposed of. Thanks.
Thank you. Gary, please.
Yes, I was taken aback when I heard that you're allowed 2 crates for glass. I've owned a property for 30 odd years. I've never heard that, and I don't know anyone that knows that. So it's a well kept secret. Are those crates? Do you have to pay for an extra one, or what happens on that?
Anna, did you want to?
Yes, yeah. So the second crate is paid for by the ratepayer, but there's no added fees to your annual solid waste rates. It is something that is on our website and advertised on our website under the fees and charges, as well as our frequently asked questions. If people ask about glass recycling or a second crate. I am aware it was also communicated to ratepayers in a letter that I think was sent in June or July 2023 before the new services started. Every property or every ratepayer received a letter regarding the new waste and recycling services, and it was detailed in that as well. And we actually do have a lot of people that order a second crate, so there's a lot of orders that go out regularly for a second crate. So
as a matter of interest, how much does a second crate cost? Is it prohibitive, or is it a reasonable figure?
May I draw your attention to page 357 of our agenda, Gary, where it is listed in the fees and charges?
Well,
$20.
20, okay. Well, that's a very reasonable charge. The other thing that Peter raised, which is I've always been very concerned about, is how we stopped the glass collection and payment for returning the glass. That in those days I was a pretty full-on cyclist, and from days when you used to have money back, you had no problems with getting punctures. When they stopped that, you had a weekly puncture, and it's just ruined the countryside. And in Canada, they kept it on for many, many years. I'm not sure if they still got it, but the last I heard, you got money back for your bottles. And if you stop the money back for the bottles and the kids will collect them, as Peter says, we should be saying to the government, you should be pushing this. So good point, Peter.
All right, thank you. So we've got some resolutions to work through. Was there anything else that Kath and Hayden and Anna, is there anything else that you wanted to work through with us?
Yes, through the chair, we were just going to give a brief summary of the budget savings that staff found as a result of the directive to find some savings to achieve the 7.7 max rates increase target. And also, if you'd like to talk briefly on the Our Coromandel magazine, we can do that.
Okay.
I'll just hand over to Hayden. So turning to page 9 of the agenda, there's a summary provided there, but if Hayden, perhaps you give an overview of that one.
Sorry, before consultation, we had a savings shortfall that we had to go away and sort of look for, and one of the areas that we found it in was the modern workspace project, which is basically the replacement of our document management system. So currently we have a document management system that's hosted internally called ECM. So we're going to a new document management system using SharePoint, which is a cloud-based system. And with the sort of phasing of that project being sort of shifted out, that's allowed us to find savings in 3 areas. The first area being the costs associated with the cloud storage. Second being, which was 163K. And then we've found 200K with contractor costs. And then the third one is the software's licensing costs. So these costs are temporary savings. This is due to just the phasing of the project. And they will obviously, they'll into the next year when we sort of do deliver this project, they'll be back. But that's the area that we sort of identified. We went through all the different activities, and IT, just with the timing of this project, allowed us to find those savings.
Those significant numbers when you add them up. That's good. Well done.
Yeah, well, it's a significant project. Not that I'm an expert in IT, but yeah, the replacement of our document management system has been is a big project.
Sure.
I could comment. I'm not sure it is a well done because it's a project that's lagging.
Yeah.
But the upside of that is we can opportunistically find what it is that council has asked us to find. We did have written in here, there's a risk that the project races ahead and therefore the savings won't be found, but you'll see we turned that around to say, well, actually, we'll make sure the project is staged such that the savings do result. And just in terms of ECM, it is a major project. If you want more information, we can probably bring that to another council meeting around ECM. It is outdated. I think it was it's last looked after by its owner in about 2012. So it's a very historic system. So we are itching to get to the new system, but yeah, in good time.
Thanks, Hayley.
Cool. And the final item was on page 10, a reference to our Coromandel magazine.
Could I just ask a question related to the previous matter? So in March, we, as council, left the challenge for staff to find something around about 863,000, and it seems that that's what's happened for this year, and we say thank you and appreciate that. But have you any sense of the implications that in particular relate to the IT, of the implications that'll have for the following year's annual plan?
Sorry. Yeah, so the following year, these costs would have been built into the LTP. So they, unless the project, it would have been part of the IT work program. So yeah, they will have already been baked into the year 3 of the LTP.
And that's likely to impact on the year 3 rate increase.
Donna?
Donna?
No, yeah, I don't.
Yeah. Always you, Donna.
I don't know what that is, but through the chair. So the savings and that what we're seeing, some of that savings as actual will be savings because the project hasn't progressed as far as it has. We don't need that cloud storage next year. So in the year after, the cloud storage is already budgeted for that year. Similar thing with the licensing. We wouldn't need them as early as what we had expected. And the contractor savings, we actually were able to save some money this time by bringing some of the costs back in house to do the project. So I guess what I'm saying is the costs going forward for year 3 or 4 once the project has landed are budgeted.
So the bulk of those IT savings are real savings. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Kath, back to you.
Okay, so the final item we had that we're looking for a decision from you on is the Coromandel magazine, which I understand you have been briefed on previously. So this is a proposal to withdraw that item from the budgets. However, there would be actually no impact on service levels or anything like that.
Delly, please.
Good.
John Grant?
I'm just going to say that I'm happy to move 3 through to 7. You want to take that in bulk?
I don't have a problem with it. Can we go seconder? Yeah. Delly, all right. We'll put the motions. All those in favour? Fabulous. Thank you. Any against? Motion carried.
It definitely needs to be said that we really appreciate and understand how much effort has gone in. So on my behalf, and I'm sure on behalf of a lot of other heads that are nodding, thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Yeah, it is. It is.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Where is that? Oh, that's it there. 395.
395.
Yes, it's just listed off the run sheet.
Oh, you got 2 items there though, one before and one over morning.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks.
So we might as well just crack into it and get this done.
Page 295, people.
So we've got one item left, which is page 295, fees and charges. And we're ahead of our schedule, so yeah, let's get this one nailed. Hayden.
Yes, I'll take the report as read, but basically this is to set the fees for 25-26. So it's basically we need to set them earlier because there's a couple fee types that we charge on send out invoices a bit earlier. I think it's dog fees and health licenses from memory. So that's why we adopt the fees and charges a bit earlier.
Thank you. So questions from councillors on this item 2.2 fees and charges? Martin? Thanks.
And then Terry.
And then Terry.
Hello, thank you. Welcome. The looking through some of the numbers, some are obviously some of the increases are very much above CPI. Some would appear to be about CPI, some haven't changed. Can you just remind me of the process that was gone through to arrive at those, and forgive me for not remembering.
Yeah, no worries. As part of the LTP project, as part of the annual plan, each activity manager went through all of their fees and charges and looked at basically in terms of their costs, what needed to be recovered, and you know what increases needed to be sort of carried on. Outside of that, it was sort of CPI. And then some just couldn't change because either legislatively they weren't able to be changed, or that just felt, the activity manager felt that they needed to sort of stay at current levels.
Okay, thank you. Because I know there will be people who will look at these and go, that's way higher than CPI. So I guess just having that understanding of how they're increasing is could be useful for the public.
Thanks, Martin. Terry?
Look, yeah, no, you've answered my question as well. It was the same with.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Did we have a conversation with our communities about having a minimum charge, even when going through a weighbridge? Was that part of the annual plan conversation? Hang on,
Pass it.
I'll look this way.
Anna? Yes.
No, so this is a new charge? Yeah, so it's I see it's
She needs to be. Yeah.
I'm currently on that.
Yeah, but
She can get there. So, thank you very much for coming to the microphone. So this is a new charge of $5, even though there is a weighbridge for anyone bringing any refuse.
Yes, that's correct. So it's a minimum charge of $5. So when attending the weighbridge, so for example, let's just say you had a bag of rubbish, that's an item charge of $5. If you had a car full of rubbish and the transaction and the weight meant that it came in at $4.97, then you would pay the $5 still. So the minimum weighbridge charge. So whether that's refuse or whether that's green waste. So that's the minimum charge that you'd pay, even if you came in under that $5 transaction based on weight.
And at some stage there was a conversation or confusion, and some of the transfer stations were charging sort of a set fee of $13 per wheelie bin.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not in this document. So that hasn't been implemented, but the $5 minimum charge has?
Yes, so the $13 is typically for a non-weighbridge site, and it's based on the volume charge. Yeah.
So calculated off the red lidded bin.
It's calculated based on the volume charge, which is I think currently it's $93. Do you have a question, Mo? No, I think currently it's $93 per cubic meter, so it's based on 240 litres
Right.
of that. So, or if you had 1 cubic meter, so that's how it comes about, as it's based on a percent. Yeah. I think is it? Yeah, $93 is uncompacted. So that's moving to 103. So that $13 would actually increase. Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Delly, please.
I'm about to sing the song that I have sung before, which is the environmental song, in which I don't think it's fair that we penalise people for reducing their waste. The small householder that recycles madly, has a worm farm and produces very little rubbish and decides to take their small bag of rubbish to the waste transfer station and is then charged $5. It has been mentioned that $5 is not a large sum, but I've also heard language around the system being rorted by those naughty people who are reducing their waste, and isn't that our ultimate goal, is that our waste contract gets smaller and smaller and the amount of rubbish that goes to landfill decreases. So as I've said before, I do not support the $5 fixed charge and would not like to see that enacted in this schedule of charges.
Thanks, Delly. I have got Martin and then Peter, please.
Are any of these increases because of the government's waste levy charge thing? I know they're putting it up every year per tonne.
Yes, that is a contributing factor. So that will increase again in July.
Can you remind me of what that increase is? Is it 20 a tonne per year that's going up?
I believe it's going from up to $65 a tonne as the levy as of 1 July.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's typically over the last few years, it's typically increased by $10 a year. So it was actually it was going back a few years, but it was at the levy was at about $10, and then the recent or previous government had increased it by $10 every year up until the fact that it got to $60, and it's now heading up to 65, I believe, on 1 July.
Right. And in fact, that's an important thing for this district because that money is going to a new RTS. Some of that money, yes.
Yes, absolutely. So the government uses that levy funding. They receive 50% basically of it, which which funds their waste minimisation fund, which we have been able to benefit from for the new transfer station, and we as a council receive the other 50% based on the population, the permanent population.
Thanks, Anna. Peter, please.
Thanks. I'm just got myself a little bit confused. So, we have the worm farm and all that sort of thing. So if I turn up with a bag, that gets charged on a per item basis? Okay, so if I've got a bag of, if I turn up with my car and a trailer, and in the trailer there's a bag of polystyrene, I'll just get charged whatever it is to get rid of a bag, that bag, is that right? Not by weight, but just because it's a bag.
We'd prefer you take your polystyrene to the Seagull Centre or Mitre 10 for recycling. But yes, the bag is an item charge. Yeah,
Right.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Martin, please.
Yes, just in response to Councillor Daly there, I do see on page 357 of the charges schedule, it has got the unofficial refuse bag per bag $5, but directly underneath there it says small carrier bag of rubbish, maximum 2 bags, 20 litres per bag, $2. Did you say it was a minimum of 5?
For the weighbridge, it's a $5 minimum charge for an item charge. So with the you're absolutely correct, with a small carrier bag, it's when we say it's approximately a third of the size of the usual big black bags you'd buy, or even if you wanted something to compare it to, when we did have plastic bags at the shopping, the retail supermarkets, that's similar size. Is that kind of grocery shopping bag size is $2. So you don't have to pay the $5 minimum for that, because the $5 minimum is for the weighbridge transaction. So when you're weighing in.
So you can rock up an RTS, not go to the weighbridge, but pay the $2? I'm confused. Is that
so you'd still pull up to the kiosk and say, I have a small carrier bag of rubbish, and they would say that is $2, thank you. And because it's an item charge, and then you'd take that round to the refuse pit and dispose of it. If you pulled up to the kiosk and advised that you had a bootload of rubbish or something like that, they would, or it could be green waste either, because green waste is a weighed and charge. So if it came to $3.50, you'd still get charged the $5 charge if you're using the weighbridge facility. So the weighbridge, we have to service them regularly. We calibrate them. We have special software systems that link directly to the weighbridge. So it's a part of it is trying to cover the costs of maintaining those weighbridges as well.
Okay, thank you.
Robin?
No, I think Anna has eloquently summed up, and I'm very happy to support the $5 because it makes the $5 minimum charge to the weighbridge, because it makes a lot of sense, recognising that people who are making an effort to reduce their waste and have a small amount of waste can do that item charge.
Thank you. Anna, will there be some signage at the transfer station sites as people go in saying minimum charge from, is it 1st of July? $5?
We would be working on signage essentially to be, so we've got a large sign at the entrance to all of the transfer stations. We also have a pricing sign on the kiosk as well. We wouldn't be looking to erect any signage until such time as any change in fees and charges were adopted and approved by elected members though.
Mhm.
But we could absolutely, once it has been approved, not only would it be on the signage, but we could absolutely put up some temporary signage just to really bring it to people's
Just to
attention.
transition people through.
Mhm.
Sorry, Delhi and then Robin, please.
I'm feeling another campaign or a comms program coming on because I think for quite a few people, there's a bit of pressure when you go to the RTS, especially if you've got people behind you. And I could imagine, especially some of our kaumatua having a wee panic about whether I'm being weighed or whether I actually can just hand this over and pay my $2. So something in our comms would be really helpful.
Yeah,
Robin.
I was really going to just return to the point that I made in the previous item about making sure that our comms were really good on this, particularly before that peak summer period. Where, again, returning to the annual plan consultation document, there were lots of people who suggested that they had a small amount of rubbish. And so if we could say, well, on your way out of town, chuck us $2 and give us the bag and we're all sweet. So I think comms is really important in this.
It's a real advantage too. If you're paying your minimum fee and you don't have to weigh, it means you don't have to weigh going out. So you
Yes,
alleviate
absolutely.
that second trip around through the weighbridge, which is often places like Whitianga at the moment. It's a real problem. Mo.
Yeah, Morena, Your Worship and councillors, just out of interest, Napier City Council, their minimum charge varies between $11 and $32 by comparison. Thank you.
John Grant, please.
Perfect segue for me, Mo. Thank you. I was just going to ask in general in regard to the various rate changes, do we do much work in comparing to other councils in regard to our overall pricings? And I mean this in the broader sense, not just in the rubbish area, to be able to sort of see some degree of consistency in how they're applied.
I can answer that. Usual practices we compare with Karakia and Matamatapiako, because in the past it was the same contractor who was servicing all three councils, and it's still the same contractor, but it's a different arrangement. The other councils, sometimes we look at Auckland, just in terms of getting scale. Thank you.
If I could respond in a general sense, the answer is yes.
Thank you. Right, councillors, any further questions? We've got some resolutions on page 295. Receiving the report and setting the fees and charges for 25-26. Could I get a mover?
Please move.
Thank you, John. Seconder, Delhi. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? That item is carried. Thank you, Harry. Okay, thanks, Hayden. Thanks, Anna. And thanks, Kath, when she's gone. And I think that is the last item on this formal meeting. So I'll declare this meeting closed. Suggest we go and have a cup of tea and we come back for our workshop at 20 minutes to 11, please. 10:40 a.m. back for the workshop. All righty.
Good. Did Gary get that?
Gary, did you get that?
Yes, I did. Do I just